without being curious, regardless of the domain, whether you do economic studies, whether you do medicine, whether you do engineering or physics or mathematics, without being curious, you cannot do anything. So curiosity is important. So
what do you think is the most challenging part when you start doing research?
I think the most challenging part is to try to find something that is new, that was never done before. So we wanted to see how this relationship between financial development and environmental degradation unfolds for the countries in the European Union that are rather different in terms of environmental indicators, but they're also different in terms of financial development.
What was the difficult part?
If I remember correctly, we got data from different databases, from Eurostat, from World Bank, also from IMF. The difficult part, I mean, all these public databases offer data in their formats. What I think many are doing is to replace missing data with zero, which of course changes quite a lot the data pattern, and it changes quite a lot the result, because basically when you do this, when you put a zero instead of having no data for that year or for that day or for that semester or week or whatever, when you put zero there, the data looks very different than it was supposed to look like.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DATASWEEP podcast. Our first guest is Mrs. Alexandra Horobet, a true professional in research and teaching, with more than 115 articles published in reputable scientific journals. Mrs. Alexandra is a teacher at Bucharest University of Economic Studies, a teacher in the Romanian-Canadian MBA program, and a guest lecturer at several international universities, including Excelia Business School. Additionally, Mrs. Alexandra is a peer reviewer for over 20 scientific journals and chairs economic conferences worldwide, having been invited to these conferences due to her extensive experience. Welcome, teacher, to the DATASWEEP podcast. How are you today?
Well, hello, Cosmin. I'm good. Ready for a weekend of work. I have a very busy August this year. Thank you for your flattering introduction. It really, makes me smile because when you look back, let's say at your life of at your career, when you look back and you realize how many you have done, while not realizing you are doing so much, it's a bit surprising always. But yeah, yeah.
Teacher, your passion for research made me to apply for the PhD studies. So my first question to you is, how did you start your passion for research?
Well, first of all, I didn't know that my passion for research made you go to pursue PhD studies. So I'm very happy to hear this, because I'm generally very happy to see that when I do things some way, people are following. So from this perspective, I'm really happy that you have said that. My passion for research, I think my passion for research was always fueled by curiosity, which I believe is characteristics of all researchers. Without being curious, regardless of the domain, whether you do economic studies, whether you do medicine, whether you do engineering or physics or mathematics, without being curious, you cannot do anything. So curiosity is important. So I think by being curious as a child and by growing more curious as a student, this led me naturally to doing research. So curiosity is the key. I began to understand that I can do research well while being a student in my last year in the university, when the professor I work with for my undergrad paper was very happy with my work and with the fact that let's say we discussed I'm going to research this, and I went further. So that was the moment when I realized that I can do research well. And I believe this is a passion that gets refueled every time I start doing something new, or I enlarge my research field, or I go into something that I've never thought about, let's say 1 year or 2 years or 3 years ago. So it's a passion that starts with curiosity, and you have to maintain this level of curiosity as you continue with research. There is no other way to do it. I don't think there is. I don't think there is a switch that you can turn on. Let's say I am passionate about research, and then you turn it off. I'm not passionate about doing research. With all research, let's say challenges that you have to face on a daily basis as you are doing this.
So regarding the research part, what do you think is the most challenging part when you start doing research?
I think the most challenging part is to try to find something that is new, that was never done before, which means that you have to read a lot, be acquainted with what other scholars have done in terms of topics, in terms of methodologies, in terms of data. So yes, this is, I think, the most challenging part when you start doing research. So which are the questions that I should address to myself or to the team I'm working with while doing research? So this novelty in what you do is essential to do research, first of all, because we advance science by asking questions that are new, that are different from the questions that have already been asked. And second, because yes, well, we have to get published. This is not necessarily something that many people like, but this is what our life is about. You need to get published, and nobody publishes something that has been done 100 times, 1,000 times, and so on. So you have to bring something new to this field of science. But I think the first part is more important than getting published. You know, advancing science means asking new questions that have not been asked, questions that, for example, have mixed responses in the existing literature body, and so on. So this is challenging. Finding what should I ask? Which is the proper question that should I ask in order to further research?
And when you start doing research, what do you consider is the most time-consuming part of the research process?
When I start doing research, the most consuming part is by far this one: reading what has been done previously. It's true that for some years now, as this let's say AI technology is being developed, finding literature became a little bit less stressful. Because there are research engines such as ResearchRabbit or Connected Papers, or which ones, or Consensus, and so on, or SciSpace. So they provide you with literature. However, let's say their outputs are kind of automatic, based on the different algorithms they use. So you still need, as a researcher, to go through everything they provide you with and decide whether this is relevant to you or not relevant to you, whether what the authors have done makes sense or it doesn't make sense. There is also a lot of, we live in a world where people publish a lot of stuff. So this is much more complicated nowadays than it was, for example, in the 90s or the 2000s. You have journals with more than 20,000 papers published in a year. This is insane.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So this is absolutely insane. So compared to, let's say, the publication model that I have lived with as a student, that I have lived with as a teaching assistant, and so on, when you had journals with, I don't know, 20 papers a year, and you had to go through all this, it was much, much easier than it is now. So these instruments are helping, but because of this huge amount of literature that we deal with these days, this part is also very, very time consuming. Another part that is very time consuming is getting data. Because I'm an empiricist, so I'm doing empirical studies. I'm working on empirical studies. Getting data and getting the right data is a pinnacle of a well done research. So based on the garbage in, garbage out model, if what you put in is not good, what you get out has no chance of being good. This is a principle that I think every empiricist should guide by. Yeah.
Before coming here to this podcast, I have read your latest published article that is called, I think, Financial Development and Environmental Degradation: Insights from European Countries. If you can tell us more about it and the way you start working on it.
Yeah, this paper is one of the papers I'm most proud of.
Congratulations.
Because, yeah, thank you. It's a paper, and I'm most proud for various reasons. One, because it's published in a reputable journal in applied economics. So I was very happy to see that. Second, because it is the result of work of a truly international team, because we are professors from Romania, also from Romania, from different universities. Bucharest University of Economic Studies, University of Sibiu, Lucian Blaga University of Sibiu, University of Pitești at the time, now it's part of Polytechnica University. And then we have two professors, one from France, from Rennes Business School, and another one from Spain. But it all started, so this is the second reason. The third reason I'm very happy is that while working for this paper, I learned quite a lot. So this paper, we worked on this paper for more than a year to get it done. Just to send it to publication, just send it for review, not to. It took 6 more months to go through review and everything. So it's a paper where it's a topic that I had to approach from a different angle, and I had to use different methodologies. In order to do that, I learned quite a lot. But it started from, I mean, this paper is a natural continuation of what I've done before, because in the past, if you look over my Google Scholar profile, you can see that I have looked at financial development, and also I have looked at environmental issues. I have other papers in these areas of research. So this one was kind of putting things together, putting together financial development and environmental degradation. And it started from the discussions with my colleagues in Romania and with a colleague in Rennes. So that was this is where we started because we noticed that research on European Union countries and Europe in general is rather scarce from this perspective. So we wanted to see how this relationship between financial development and environmental degradation unfolds for the countries in the European Union that are rather different in terms of environmental indicators, but they're also different in terms of financial development. When we started, we also wanted to look at the differences between bank-based and financial market-based systems. But unfortunately, almost the entire Europe is bank-based, so we couldn't let's say make a significant division between these countries. But we in the paper we make the difference between Western countries and Eastern countries. Well, the Eastern countries are the former communist countries that share a common past and also share common struggles. If we look at the years since they are part of the European Union. So this paper, because I don't have papers that are written just by myself. Usually my papers are written in collaborations. This paper started with a discussion with this idea of trying to understand what happens in Europe and how the financial development and the type of financial development that we have can foster a better environment for European countries.
And regarding the data process you did in this paper, which I mentioned earlier, what was the difficult part?
If I remember correctly, we got data from different databases, from Eurostat, from World Bank, also from IMF. The difficult part, I mean, all these public databases offer data in their formats. So when you collect data from them, first of all, it is highly possible that let's say the indicators that you are looking for can come in multiple formats. So you need to decide which one is the right for you. So you need to look very careful at the metadata, and you need to look very careful at their definitions. Also, in several databases, you may have the same indicator defined differently. So you need to know what you are working with. But after that, you have, for example, countries in this case, countries that are denoted differently, they come in different order. So it takes quite a lot of time to put all this data together and to take, let's say, data for a country that comes from Eurostat and put it together with data that comes from the World Bank. So this takes a lot of time to putting data together, putting them in the same file, and then loading the data in the programs that you use. For example, I use Stata quite a lot, but it's the same. It's the same whether you use R. I also work with R. Whether you use R or Python or eViews and so on. So this is challenging. First of all, getting, let's say, acquainted with the data, see what does it mean, then selecting the one that is the best for you, and three, putting it together because it comes in different notations, different formats. Then you have data that is missing. This is another issue that may arise, but maybe we will talk about this more a little bit later. So there is data that is missing. So you need to put this all together in one piece. You see that you start working with. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and everybody that works with data has this issue.
And how do you collect your data, and what is the most used data format that you prefer when you start doing research? For example, panel data or time series data, cross-sectional data, and so on.
Lately, I have worked a lot with panel data, but in the past, I worked with time series, also cross-sectional data. But lately, I'm working with panel data. So what I do is to usually collect it in Excel and then arrange it in Excel to upload it in Stata or reviews. This is the way it works for me because it is an easy way to go through the data and see whether there are problems in the data. What I always do before starting digging into the data and analyzing it is to check data properties. I always like to inspect the data visually, which is something I've noticed not many people are doing. Including my doctoral students. So visualizing data, see how it looks like, is important. There is something I remember now, I wanted to say earlier, that when you use data and when you collect data from different sources, of course, as I said even earlier, you go through existing literature. So this existing literature gives you insights into what other scholars have been using as data. But still, when you collect the data and say, okay, maybe this variable is the one I want, maybe this one, you have to decide on which one to use, also looking at existing literature. So it is this is also a process that takes a lot of time to see how the data that you want to use or you contemplate on using has been used in previous research. So this is important to see. Right now, there is no way to see that. There is no platform. There is no what do I say, website, nothing that tells you, okay, so this data has been used in these researches, which might be very, very helpful for you as a researcher.
Yeah, that's true. We are working on this on our platform, so stay tuned. I will
Oh, well, that's a very good news. If you can do this, that would be,
Yeah.
I think, highly appreciated by many. Yeah.
I have another question regarding the data process. Is there a common mistake you often see in the data process, and if you can tell us how can we avoid that mistake?
Data process. I think there is a mistake that many are doing when preparing the data for manipulation, but in the good sense, not in the sense of changing the data or something. What I think many are doing, because I can see that from papers where full panels are balanced panels are reported, and I know for sure, because I am working with the data, that the panel is not balanced. So what I think many are doing is to replace missing data with zero, which of course changes quite a lot the data pattern, and it changes quite a lot the result, because basically when you do this, when you put a zero instead of having no data for that year or for that day or for that semester or week or whatever, when you put zero there, the data looks very different than it was supposed to look like. So this is how your panel becomes, instead of unbalanced, balanced. They do this, I think, for lack of knowledge, or they do it deliberately in order to apply models that otherwise would not be suitable for unbalanced panels. The second thing that I think matters is that the models that scholars apply might not be fit for the data. They apply models that end up with results that don't mean much because those models are not able to handle data properties. For example, lack of stationarity, or different levels of integration in the data, or slope heterogeneity, or structural breaks, or you name it. My approach to this is usually to look at the data properties and then decide the model. What I see it recently being done, and I'm seeing this from several papers I have recently reviewed, is that scholars tend to apply a simple model, for example, I don't know, fixed effects or GMM, and then they say, oh, we run some robustness tests to see if this holds on. That's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to look at the data, see how data looks like, how data, which are the data properties, and then based on data properties apply the model. Choose the model that is most appropriate in that. I mean, the model that handles best the data that you work with. It's not easy to work with data. So people think, oh, that's easy. So you take some data, you run. No, it's not easy, because if you just collect the data and you run a model, this is not science. This is just an exercise. This is for an undergrad paper on an undergrad homework, but this is not science. So we cannot call ourselves scientists when we do this. We need to do it properly.
Yeah. Is there any aspect of working with data in the financial and economic field that you believe researchers and general public should better understand? For example, maybe adding too many variables in the econometric model or other things.
Well, I think the general public is not very highly acquainted with statistics.
Okay.
Yeah, so the general knowledge of statistics is very, very low, in my opinion. Therefore, people tend to interpret data wrongly, and for example, mix or confuse means with medians and stuff like this. Also, it is very easy to mislead people while using graphs and data, if you know how to frame it properly. And of course, if you want to mislead the people on this. Using too many variables, yes, of course, it adds to the chances of having multicollinearity. But this is, I think, too far when we talk about the general public. So I think the general public might have a little bit more understanding of statistics. And in the end, it is our job as scientists to explain to the general public these things. So, for example, let's say, presumably one day I would take the results of my paper and I will try to explain it to the general public. I would go with some easy things, and I will try to explain the basics in the context. So again, I'm talking about the general public, not about the scientist public that do understand the statistics. But when we talk about the general public, this lack of knowledge is obvious, and you can see it everywhere in the media, including when journalists do not know how to read the results of a study and they report it completely in a completely wrong manner.
Yeah. At the beginning, I think you said something about the following principle: garbage in, garbage out. If you can answer to the following question: how do the quality and accessibility of data influence the quality of the research?
It's everything. If the data that you introduce is not the one that you need in order to address the research question, the result is far from what you expect. In research, we always start by this research question, and I mentioned this at the beginning. When the research question is not appropriate, or the empirical approach and the data that you use are not appropriated for the research question that you are asking, the chance of getting results that do not matter is quite high. So the quality of the data means everything for the quality of the results that you get.
Okay. And for young researchers, what advice would you offer to them who are struggling with working with data or with statistic, econometric models, and so on and so forth?
I would suggest them to, first of all, to learn how to do modeling from the best ones and from the books, not from YouTube videos. These can be very helpful. I also use them, but I started with the books. So you have to start with with the hard stuff, and this hard stuff is in the books. So start with the books in econometrics. Start with books in statistics, whether it can be business statistics, it can be statistics for economics. There are very good econometrics textbooks. And then after you've went through these textbooks, and now these books are enhanced with examples using e-views or using Stata and so on, which is much better than it used to be on my when I was younger and trying to learn all these things. Also try to another advice that I would give them is try to work with one software that you think that you think you can master well, whether it is e-views or it is Stata, but trying to learn it well. Try to learn it well, how to use this, because it will help you quite a lot. And as I say to all my students, whether undergrad or graduate, these softwares have a fantastic feature that is called help.
The help section.
The help section is fantastic because you can see there, for example, how the commands in the model are constructed. What do they mean? What is the syntax? What do they give you in the end as a result? Do not assume that what you get in one software is the same as what you get in another software, because the estimation methods can be quite different. So the help is a good section, but learn the books. So learn the let's say the hard stuff first, then master a software and work with it. And after you have mastered it, you can go to another one. But study is general general advice.
Yeah. Thank you, teacher, for accepting our invitation, and for the others that are watching us, stay tuned for our next podcast. So thank you again, and I hope to see you soon to our next podcast. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cosmin, and good luck with what you do, because I think you're on the right path. And I hope that this passion for research that I ignited in you, as you said at the beginning, will turn up well in the future for you. Well, wish you all the best, and thank you for the invitation again.
Thank you, teacher. See you next time, guys.
Thank you. See you.